No commentator wasn't aware that he'd made the final decision just a few seconds ago, but there's the answer. And the Bulldogs take the field. Captain Chris Anderson. Obviously hoping that they're not going to be quite so far behind at the end of the first 40 minutes today. There's the full team: Chris Mortimer, Anderson, Armstrong, Farah, Peter Mortimer, Gary Hughes, Steve Mortimer, Folkes, Battieri, Pittman, Robinson, Johnston and Coveney. Is there anybody there? Now here come the Dragons, hoping to continue what has been an amazing run to the semi-finals. The Dragons taken out by John Jansen, and those couple of players over whom there was just a little doubt in the ranks. Brian Johnson, one of them. Gearan, Morris, O'Connor, Beattie, Trudgett, Henjack, Fraser, Graham Wynn in the side with Walsh, Jansen, Dowling and Stone. There's a close-up of Gary Hughes with the headgear. John Gosher in charge of this match today. There's the readout on what these two clubs have done over the last 3 years. In '81 it was St George twice. In '82 Canterbury winning one and drawing the other, and then in '83 it's been Canterbury both times, 10-6 and 9-2. Canterbury came into the premiership in 1935. They've won 3 premierships, 38, 42 and 80. That's the one you remember, Graham, eh?
Never ever forget it.
And the Saints, what a record. 1921 they came into it, 15 times they've won it, 41, 49, the remarkable 11 on end, 56 to 66, 77 and 79. Canterbury running from right to left as Tony Armstrong starts this sudden death semi-final. Brian Johnson, first of the Dragons to get a touch. Taken to ground by Michael Pittman and Gary Hughes. And this is Walsh, who's just beyond the 22 line. Now Stone is going to give it to Jansen. He's put it behind him. There's a chance on for Andrew Farah. Coming at him as when he's missed him. It's a try! Well, what a sensational start for Canterbury Bankstown. 35 seconds into the game. Andrew Farah scoring a try as Robert Stone lost that ball. Farah simply following through, picked it up. He beat the attempted tackle from Graham Wynn and went into the Paddington Hill corner.
Well, just the thing Ted Gossett was hoping for. Last weekend we saw Canterbury start the match slowly. A great hit there by Taz Battieri, knocked the ball from Robert Stone. Andrew Farah on the spot. A stop-start here with a goose step and away he goes from Graham Wynn. Manages to keep his balance.
Andrew Farah scoring a try in what must be a record time in a major match at the Sydney Cricket Ground. 35 seconds our timepiece had it at. And that would be a very disappointed Roy Masters, as Steve Rogers says it all, as he shades his eyes from a very embarrassing start for St George. Tony Armstrong from the showground touchline. 24 metres out. 76.5% success rate. Head on. Hits it. Not looking bad, but getting away in the final moments. So Canterbury Bankstown leads St George by 4 points to 0.
Well, there's no doubt that the most important stage in this game is going to be the first 15 minutes for Canterbury Bankstown. If they can tackle well in that period, they can certainly win the game. In the past, their defence has been extremely lazy in the first 15 minutes of the game, but well, isn't it good for Ted Glossop to see that tremendous 4-point start?
Chris Anderson crossing the 22 line. Pittman. Chris Mortimer. Bouncing down inside the 22. St George are now going to have to call on all their experience to gather themselves together in the face of having a try scored against them after just 35 seconds. It could have the other effect, of course. Everything could fall apart. Dowling sending it back for the kick for Graham Wynn. The breeze is coming out of the east at around 10 k's. And that means that it's coming across the ground as the penalty goes to Canterbury Bankstown. Farah taking the line kick and finding it just on his side of the halfway. Tony Armstrong takes the tap, and it's with Steve Mortimer. And Billy Johnston throws the dummy to Mortimer on the run round, and going back to the blind was Taz Batiri. He's right on the halfway line. Mortimer, Johnston, that's Stephen Folkes, and taken to ground by 3 of the St George players, Henjack, Trudgett and Fraser, right in the centre of the cricket ground as it goes back to Mortimer, now to Gary Hughes. A cut-out pass beats a couple of the Canterbury players and goes wide to the flank and then infield for Anderson. And now it's with Johnston across the ground, then Mortimer, now Hughes, Robinson. Held about 6 metres into St George's territory, allowed to play on. It's with Batiri now. And Batiri is grounded by Michael O'Connor. The groans from the crowd indicate or ask the question, when is a tackle a tackle? And there's a kick for touch, finding it inside the 22.
Well, this
from
is
Steve Mortimer.
Ideal start for Canterbury Bankstown is exactly what their captain and their coach would have been looking for, and this is the situation in the game where St George have got to gather themselves, concentrate on their job and just play their own game and play it well.
Yeah, and a different start to last week, where the Canterbury forwards, instead of just running one out, they're putting on a few run-arounds, a nice variation around the rucks.
Saints coming up with the scrum win, and Tony Trudgett is put down by Gary Hughes, and Folkes just outside the quarter. That's Graham Wynn taking it up through the centre, and that hurt Taz Batiri. That's Batiri lying behind where Wynn played the ball. Jansen, oh gee, Jansen just almost handed it to Armstrong for Canterbury. A very shaky start by the Dragons, and now Canterbury have knocked on, and the advantage rule applies, and St George to play it.
And immediately St George swung into that pattern of attack that we're used to seeing from them in the last 4 or 5 matches. They worked the play to the centre of the field and then brought it back blind side. This is something they've worked a lot during this semi-final series, and I can't see them changing it today.
Again with us today on our commentary team, former Australian captain Max Krilich, and a disastrous start for the Dragons.
Bad start for the Dragons, Ray, but a great start for the Bulldogs. I've just noticed there how Graham Wynn's running into the rucks with a lot of venom, and the way that St George are going to get back into the game is for his mates to follow him straight into the rucks very hard, and as Taz Batiri's finding out, he's finding a lot of trouble getting up off the ground, and Saints will get back into the match, but it's going to be hard for him. It's a bad start getting a try behind like that after only 1 or 2 minutes, and Canterbury it could be a bad thing for Canterbury too, because they might think we've got the game won, and they could better watch themselves.
So there's Max Quilich with the two sides of the story. With players like this man Dowling and this fellow Jansen, the experienced players, it's up to them to settle the Dragons down and tell them to try and get that first try out of their mind against them. Penalty to the Saints.
A number of St George players went into this game reportedly carrying injuries, and I've been watching Brian Johnson very closely in the back play, and I just can't help but think that he hasn't overcome his injury. He appears to be very short-strided, quite hoppy in the back play.
Beattie taking the line finder. And here's the tap to be taken now, deep inside Canterbury territory. St George are very wide and very deep to the right, and it's coming right with Beattie. And he's met by Hughes and by Folks. Centre field just outside the 22 is Tony Trudgett, one of their form players, is tackled by Robinson and Johnston. Dowling is the dummy half. Jansen going with him, but Dowling takes the front line and is met by Folks and pulled down. They're 12 metres from the Canterbury line. Henjack, Trudgett, now Wynn galloping into an opening, taken about 5 metres out from the line.
Geez, an improved football the last 5 or 6 weeks, Graham Wynn. That's the sort of form we know he can produce.
Trudgett, blindside. O'Connor, quick pass to Stone. Can he pass? Yes, it's out with Gearon. Gearon's nowhere to go.
The full marks there to Chris Anderson. He nullified what could have been a scoring chance for St George.
Here's the last for the Dragons. Henjack gets around Mortimer, gets the kick up, and it's going to be too deep. In fact, over the dead ball line on the full, so it'll come out to the 22 for the place kick restart.
Yes, I think Maxi Quilich has pinpointed Canterbury's main problem for the day. Graham Wynn, big, strong running forward, and he's the man that Canterbury have got to pull down. I've noticed that St George, though, as Max also said, are not supporting him.
Johnston. That's Pittman with that right knee, again heavily bandaged. Mortimer shooting for the touchline, and he's found it again. Good kick by Steve Mortimer, finding it down on the St George 32-metre line. That's the Rank Arena replay of the accuracy of the Steve Mortimer kick in general play. Henjack working the scrum. John Gershon not happy. And again, St George win it. It's out with Trudgett. It was a bad pass. He's able to get around Gary Hughes.
Well, of course, Tony Trudgett's a very strong player. He can push through that first line of defence, and he's one of the unsung heroes of the St George side. Does a lot of organising in attack and a lot of hard work in defence.
That was a heavy hit from Andrew Farrer on Graham Wynn. Now Jansen. St George reaching the halfway line, trailing by 4 points to 0. Henjack, Trudgett, O'Connor, Johnson, and Farrer again coming up very quickly, parceling him up, ball and all. Good tackling from Andrew Farrer. O'Connor. 5 tackles now for St George. Henjack running as a decoy. It's going back to Wynn, who puts the kick in. Chris Mortimer getting across. It's infield, and it's Canterbury in possession now with their full-back. Front-on tackle made by Ivan Henjack. Anderson, Mortimer, Armstrong. Falling across from the left wing as Canterbury form themselves up into an attacking pattern. Pittman playing it. Robinson. Every time he handles, the Canterbury fans rise. The kick for Chris Mortimer.
That was a good kick by Mortimer. It was one of those kicks that went into a hole and made both the fullback and the winger move. It's far better result for Canterbury than a kick that would have gone straight to either of those players.
Gearon, who would have fond memories of the grand final victory he enjoyed playing with his opponents today. Jansen. Now it's Henjak. This is Walsh. Pittman making the tackle with Robinson's help. Now Johnson. And that kick again infield and safely taken by Chris Mortimer. Tony Armstrong. Tackle by Michael Beattie. Heavy tackle too by Beattie. Chris Mortimer.
Well, in Steve Mortimer and Gary Hughes, Canterbury have got two of the best kickers, chip kickers and grubber kickers in football, and what St George are going to have to be careful of is just watching this little kick over the top, because they're playing no cover defence on the early tackles, and that's when they could get into danger.
John Coveney. Johnston took it ahead and stopped, and the defence hung off him, and he was able to take play very close to the halfway line. Steve Mortimer. A kick in general play, but that's out on the full. And the scrum to go down about 7 metres on the Canterbury side of halfway. Third grade today to Souths over Cronulla, 25-0. Reserve grade to the Saints over the Bulldogs, 10-4. St George would have taken the field with their morale high, their reserves getting up against Canterbury, but I would think that confidence would have been taken from them very quickly, as it turned out, with Canterbury leading by 4 points to 0. Farah, who's been responsible for a couple of very heavy tackles, and a much improved player. Steve Mortimer trying to work his way through the forward area. He ran into Stone and Wynn, and now it's with Battieri giving it to Coveney, and Coveney is met by Henjak and Dowling. Now it's with Mortimer. Gary Hughes, Chris Mortimer. That's a good tackle by Trudgett. Still that wrap goes to the right, and again Steve Mortimer has found the line. Another good kick. Finding touch this time 15 metres away from the St George line.
Yes, and there's no doubt that Canterbury have got it on their minds from that last week effort against Parramatta, the way they started the game so badly, and they're a little bit tentative. They're not really throwing the ball around, but Steve Mortimer controlling the game brilliantly so far with his kicking for touch.
St George coming up with another scrum win.
And great defence there by Andrew Farah. Realised St George had the overlap, left his man, came in and made a ball and all tackle.
Now it's with Beattie. He's able to take the tackle of Peter Mortimer and get it back to O'Connor, and a penalty has been given to St George. Offside against Canterbury Bankstown. This was Michael Beattie standing in the tackle of Peter Mortimer, giving it back to Mike O'Connor. And that's where the penalty came.
And that's what you certainly call playing the advantage, I guess. He's obviously ruled that Canterbury were well offside in the play of the ball, which would have been, what, 3 or 4 passes previous.
Yes, it was certainly a delayed decision by referee John Gosha. We're near the halfway line now as we come back to the blind with Tony Trudgett, who gives a short ball to Steve Morris, and Morris is taken by Armstrong. Fraser. Robinson over the top. Henjak, Stowe. A tamer start to this sudden death semi-final than was predicted by some of the judges. The pass from Johnson to Morris looked fractionally forward, and that was Morris is bundled to the ground by Robinson.
And that was that blindside attack again from St George, into the middle and back down the blind.
Wynn. He'll score! Wynn has gone down the touchline to score! Well, shoddy defence from Canterbury Bankstown. Here's the try on replay. Graham Wynn from dummy half. Got away from Armstrong, beat Robinson, dummied on the inside, beat Peter Mortimer, and was in to score. 4 points all with that try to Graham Wynn.
Well, shades of last week, both Canterbury players going the open side. When they had a double marker, one should have covered the blind. But again, as you said, very shoddy defence, and he very simply should have been put into touch.
Well, the similarity of the try just scored by Graham Wynn and Andrew Farrer in that they both must have been only centimetres in from the touchline. The try came on the last tackle, and it was that variation that Bill Anderson has been talking about all year. As Guerin from the touchline fails. Not kicking, but in fact running with the ball on the last has brought the St George side a try, and it's 4 points all. That try will have boosted the St George confidence, Max Krilich.
Oh, great try to Graham Wynn. Poor blindside defence by the Canterbury players, but Wynn ran with a lot of determination and spirit then, and he showed what you can do when you put, run on the boil, and he tested the Canterbury defence with a great try to come back into the game.
Certainly a couple of the Canterbury players should hang their heads in shame. A couple of feeble attempts at tackle as we find another penalty going to the Saints on the Dragons 22. Beattie's line kick, a good one, finding it 6 metres on the Canterbury side of halfway. Play on the showground side. Jansen, short ball back for Wynn, lost down to Mortimer. Mortimer across the ground, straightens, now delivers. Peter Mortimer to the halfway, beats one, turns it inside. Tony Armstrong, taken by Beattie. Taz Batiri. Canterbury with 17 minutes of the match gone. Now, I believe, have decided it's time to give the ball air, let the ball do the work, and work on the extremities of the field.
Yeah, for as much as that try might have lifted the confidence of the Saints, it also might make Canterbury start to play with a little bit more urgency. That sensational start for them could easily have seen them just sit back and become far too complacent.
Saints inside the 5, and a chance for Tony Armstrong to take Canterbury back to the undisputed lead. He's almost in front and 32 metres out. St George captain John Jansen. Tony Armstrong filling the position of the injured Ross Conlon. Hits it nicely. Yes, he's got it. Armstrong takes Canterbury Bankstown back to the lead at 6 points to 4. Mike O'Connor. Right back by Batiri for Canterbury. He goes back and serves it up to Farrer. And a bustling, very strong run by Farrer on his own quarter. Batiri. Stone went in with the shoulder, and Batiri met him with the same equipment. Johnston feeding it back for the kick to Chris Mortimer. Taken in spectacular fashion by Guerin. Gary Hughes making the tackle. Fraser. Jensen taking it up strongly. And Jensen has now taken play about 35 metres out from the Canterbury line. Henjack, Trudgett, Henjack on the run round, the kick out wide for the flankers, but it's gone into touch. And a scrum will go down midway, 22 halfway, Canterbury's end of the field. Gone. Well, that feed from Steve Mortimer looked very doubtful from here as it goes out to Peter, and he's caught and tackled by O'Connor. Pittman. Bateri. Stone and Jensen, or Walsh it is, combining to make the tackle. Robinson, met head on by John Dowling. Mortimer. Here's Chris Mortimer, taken by Beattie and Trudgett. Chris Mortimer feeding off that short ball from Gary Hughes as Steve Mortimer again kicks and finds it. Beautiful kicking from Steve Mortimer. The scrum will go down 15 metres out from the St George line. Again, the Saints win it. Trudgett. Beattie. 4-2 the scrums to the Dragons. Johnson. Bouncing short of Chris Mortimer. And they're going to engage in a kicking duel, it seems. Graham Wynn will have to hurry. No, he's got it covered. Well, now Chris Mortimer may decide to break from this kicking duel.
It's a ball that Chris Mortimer should have caught on the full and not allowed to bounce. It could have gone anywhere then, including into touch.
He persists and kicks the ball. Johnson sends a torpedo punt over the head of Armstrong. It's done a right-hand turn and found touch. Brian Johnson, the kicker. A mighty gain for the Dragons. I thought Chris Mortimer may have broken from this kicking duel when Graham Wynn came on the scene for St George. I think he was happy to kick with Brian Johnson, but Canterbury has won the scrum. Armstrong.
Well, St George is still playing no cover defence on the early tackles, and there's no doubt that Brian Johnson's carrying a leg injury and isn't as mobile as he'd like to be. And with both of those things in mind, I'd like to see Canterbury kicking the ball more than they are. Chips over the top, grubber kicks, etc.
Oh, ball put down by Michael Pittman, and running with it is Colin Fraser, taken by Billy Johnston and Gary Hughes.
And they're the sort of errors you just can't make in semi-final football.
Well, St George has already made one of them, and they paid a very dear penalty. Here's Graham Wynn. Graham Wynn, like a man possessed, takes it within about 5 metres of the line. Gosha says, get off him, let him play it. It's out with Walsh now. Mortimer went high. Nothing dangerous, though. Out now with Henjack. A grub kick by O'Connor, marked beautifully by Peter Mortimer.
And well, he did, because Stevie Morris was racing into that corner to chase.
Penalty to Canterbury. St George offside. (4-3) the penalties to the Saints. Tap to be taken by Steve Mortimer, Billy Johnston, Taz Batiri.
Yes, and in the back play we can see that Chris Mortimer, the Canterbury fullbacks, moved into a position directly behind the play the ball. This gives him the latitude to go open side or blind side wherever he can, wherever he feels there's a hole, and I'm sure that he'll get involved in this play in the next one ruck or two.
Coveney, he's lost it, and the referee is going to put a scrum down. (6-4) then to Canterbury.
And neither side really has shown that they've got their game in shape in the first 25 minutes of this match.
Again, St George coming up with a scrum win, and here's Trudgett trying to make the break, but Peter Mortimer made the tackle just in time. It's with Graham Wynn, and he holds back a pass and cuts out a man and gives it to Henjack, and Henjack turns it inside. Morris has lost it. Canterbury Bankstown coming away with it. Folks has tackled 10 metres his side of the halfway. Gary Hughes, Steve Mortimer. There's Chris Mortimer into the play now. Beating Trudgett, taken by Beattie. Steve Mortimer, a scurry from dummy half and given to Johnston. Dowling and Beattie making the tackle just short of the halfway line. Coveney turning it to Robinson. Robinson holds Henjack at bay with one arm and delivers a pass around the back to Peter Mortimer, who plays it, and Taz Batiri runs with it now. Taken to ground by John Jansen. Steve Mortimer has fallen in for this kick and decides against that and decides to pass, and it's with Tony Armstrong. Now it's Folks, now it's Mortimer. There's a try coming. Billy Johnston! Billy Johnston is in for Canterbury Bankstown. The second try that has come from a team opting not to kick on number 6. Steve Mortimer not kicking, holding up a pass. Tony Armstrong doing so well, and look at the joy on Billy Johnston's face. Here's Armstrong. He got inside his opposite number, then was taken. Folks backed up. Mortimer did likewise. That's the 22 line, and Billy Johnston was setting his sails and going for the line. Canterbury Bankstown 10 now. St George 4.
A great variation by Mortimer. He shaped the kick, threw a long ball out to wing at Armstrong. He shows tremendous footwork here to beat Stevie Morris. Plenty of support inside Steve Folks. Stevie Mortimer again reading play to back up, and Billy Johnston always backing up as he does. A great try to Canterbury, and it gets them right back into the game.
Well, the reason these variations work on the 6th tackle of running the ball and not kicking it is the defending side puts their winger back deep waiting for the kick. They have cover defence back waiting for the kick, which means their defensive line is short, and consequently the attack has extra numbers on them.
Well, I don't think I've seen a man quite as happy as that fellow Billy Johnston at scoring a try at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and he's still smiling out there. He's got a face on him like a split watermelon.
Well, he's a man who's had, I believe, 3 tries taken off him this year.
Tony Armstrong preparing to take the conversion. 1 out of 2. Although that man in yellow, John Gosher, is in charge of the game, the way I'm seeing it, Steve Mortimer is the fellow that's controlling it. Armstrong hits it nicely. He's got it. No worries if you're a Bulldog fan. You're leading by 12 points to 4 now. There's the little fellow, Mr. Magic.
Yes, I just said Canterbury getting back into the ball game there. I thought that they were losing control a little bit. Both sides, even though we've had just over 27 minutes of play, they were still more or less just feeling each other out. Nobody had cut loose and thrown the ball about except for that long pass by Mortimer.
So the restart is there from O'Connor and Farah. Out to the 22 line is Andrew. The way he's running with such great purpose, he'd be the last man I'd be kicking off to, Bill Anderson.
Yes, Andrew Farah's a dynamic ball runner, and he's certainly one of those players you'd like to keep the ball away from.
Chris Mortimer falling back into the Ted Glossop game plan, kicking on the early tackles.
Yes, I just don't know that Brian Johnson's well enough to be able to run the ball from these situations. I think he's virtually committed to kick or to pass. I just think that leg's not right.
So Brian is kicking from on his 32, and that's a shorter kick, but the bounce has helped him, and Chris is just 5 metres inside his 22. Let's see the result of this exchange. It's out to Gearon's flank. Now he's going to have a go. Johnson fell around behind him as if to say, let's run it.
That's played on.
That's played at now. Anderson played at the ball, and he's got Chris Mortimer in support.
Yes, as soon as a player touches the ball or plays at the ball or passes the ball, it's immediately play on.
Steve Mortimer to play it, just outside the 22 line. Robinson.
Yeah, Jeff Robinson there was found wanting for support. Robinson's just not a battering ram. Jeff Robinson's a player that can unload the ball in tackles, and I'd like to see some of these back row forwards and the halves for Canterbury Bankstown support him when he does make a run with the ball. He can get the ball away.
There's the chip from Steve Mortimer. We've been waiting for it. Felled in the back play. Gosha saw it, said play on.
Well, there was no doubt in my mind that should have been a penalty to Canterbury Bankstown. I'm sure that Mortimer was interfered with.
Play is right on the halfway line. Stone. Henjack. Walsh. Nice low tackle holding the St George second rower from Taz Batiri. Trudgett switches the point of the attack. Jansen. Johnston making the tackle. Trudgett. Beattie. Now O'Connor to Morris. And Morris well taken by Armstrong. 5 tackles gone for the Saints. The kick from O'Connor. High down to Chris Mortimer. Pass has been put down. Ivan Henjack has come up with it. Well, they're flirting with danger, both these teams.
Yes, that's not a good position to push a pass there in your own quarter on the first tackle. That was just not necessary.
Fraser, 10 metres out from the line. Batiri and Robinson, the tacklers. Graham Wynn hits it up hard, gets the pass to Henjack, and Henjack is over the line, but it's no try. Held up in goal.
They continue to have trouble with this big man, and on this occasion Henjack read the play well and backed up. But great defence here by, well, firstly Mortimer to stop him in his tracks, and Farah, who's been superb in defence for Canterbury.
John Gosha in a perfect position to rule on it. Saints win the scrum. Tony Trudgett gets it down. It's a try. It's been given. Tony Trudgett scoring from the quick service from the scrum base. Here's the replay. The scrum was won, and Henjack worked a little play there with Fraser. And Trudgett, he was held by Farah, reached out, and oh dear, that looked short to me.
Ball on the line's a try.
Wow. Let's see this plant down from Tony Trudgett again. The goal is about to be taken. Well, it seemed as though he put it down on its point, and it may not have been on the line. Very, very tricky decision for the referee to make. Gearon has converted, and the St George side comes storming back. Canterbury 12, Saints 10.
Well, the St George team have shown us for the last 5 weeks they just refuse to lie down. They're going to stand up and be counted yet again here at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
This is Steve Morris. There'll be plenty of talk about that try that was given by the referee to Tony Trudgett. Graham Hughes was looking at me, and I think he tended to agree with the way I saw it. He seemed to plant it down on its point, and the point was short of the line.
Yes, I thought it was, Ray. I did think he planted on the point, and the ball ended up being pushed across the line after that.
I thought it was put on the line, and on the line's a try.
Well, there it is. So there's a variation of opinion in the commentary box. Chris Mortimer.
Oh, that's dangerous football by Chris Mortimer. They're the sort of things that make coaches tear their hair out.
Steve Mortimer now. Away from dummy half. Gives it back to Chris Mortimer. Picks up Billy Johnston. Billy Johnston down to the 22 line.
Look for Canterbury to move the ball wide to the right.
Here's the kick by Steve Mortimer. It's going into touch. And a scrum will go down 5 metres out from the Saints line. From dangerous play, they're now just 5 metres away from the Saints line, but the St George side get the penalty. Billy Johnson's never done so much running, has he? Even at training. The line kick is founded on the Saints 22. Jansen. Or Walsh it is, in fact. And now Stone. There's no doubt about the two players on the field who are creating most problems. As Morris is brought down 10 metres on his side of the halfway. Win for St George and Steve Mortimer for Canterbury. Trudge it on the run around with O'Connor, and Beattie has left it behind him when the overlap had been well and truly created. He's away from Gary Hughes, got the pass to Steve Gearon. Gearon's over halfway, inside 45, kicks ahead. Was he felled late? That'll be answered later. It's in the in goal and forced by Chris Mortimer, and the penalty has been given to St George for a late tackle on Steve Gearon. Here was Gearon pursued by Farrer. He drops it onto the right foot and then gets a push in the back. And the penalty has been given to the St George side. Andrew Farrer, the offender. I don't think there's a man game enough to say that Steve Gearon can't kick this. A metre in from touch and on the 22. One of the guys in the box wants to have an investment that he misses it. Get out of here. Five minutes from the break. Gearon, can he send them to the break at 12 points all? It's looking good. He's got it! What a great kick by Gearon from the touchline. The Saints and the Bulldogs at 12-12. Should have taken that bet. Kick off by Canterbury. Down to the flying Steve Morris.
Canterbury aren't looking down the barrel of an 18-0 deficit like last weekend, but they certainly are keeping St George in the match by making a lot of silly mistakes and giving away far too many penalties.
Yes, they're just making errors that they don't have to make, errors that are completely unforced. They're putting all the pressure back on themselves and giving St George an armchair ride, really.
Billy Johnston is injured in the back play for Canterbury as it's played by St George out on the 32-metre line by Graham Wynn. Fed back for the kick by Brian Johnson.
Yeah, St George have persisted with this kicking game right throughout the semi-final series, and it's paid dividends for them.
Tony Armstrong.
Now this is where Canterbury Bankstown just have to settle down their play. Nothing fancy for 2 or 3 rucks. Just hit the ball up, get some momentum, get some easy yardage, and then they can look to spread the ball open or blindside. But they don't have to do anything yet.
Anderson playing it. Pittman. Mortimer. Hughes. Cuts out Farah, finds Peter Mortimer out wide. Actually, Chris came into the play and got a magic pass away. Peter Mortimer's gone downfield. Andrew Farah takes it up inside the 32. There goes Steve Mortimer. He's away. Scores. Steve Mortimer. Well, that had Mortimer written right across it. The three brothers all involved. What a super try. The three brothers combining. Steve was there, then Gary Hughes. The cutout pass found Chris Mortimer, then Peter. Peter does very well. He dummied and jinked and got around Steve Morris. And then on the inside, here comes Andrew Farah. Then he takes it to the 22 and finds Steve Mortimer. And he's off to score in front of the Bradman stand patrons.
Well, it's been a bit of an indifferent bit of form in the last 20 minutes or so of the game, but Canterbury, but all their trademarks were in this move. Long balls out to the backs. Peter Mortimer carrying the ball in front of him, as you always should, carrying it in the right arm too, showing a perfect dummy. Andrew Farah, who's having a strong match, backs up well. And Steve Mortimer, the man that really has been controlling the game for Canterbury, backs up with that amazing pace of his to give them that what looks like, or should be, a half-time lead.
Try scorer, Steve Mortimer. Tony Armstrong from right in front. He won't get a simpler kick. Makes no mistake. And Canterbury Bankstown leads St George by 18 points to 12. Max Trillich, both sides have been flirting with danger, and on at least a couple of occasions they've paid a very, very costly price.
Yes, Ray, I think they're playing some, at times, very poor semi-final football, but at the same time they're playing some good semi-final football by kicking the ball down the opposition's half. Full credit to Steve Mortimer. What a game he's having, as is Graham Wynn and Andrew Farah. And Billy Johnson, when Steve Mortimer scored that try, was Billy Johnson right behind him. Like, he's having a great game, Billy Johnson, a great hooker.
Yeah, an obedient hooker, always following through there, hoping to pick up that elusive try, which wasn't quite so elusive for Billy today. In fact, the man making that comment had the happy knack of always being there or thereabouts in case he's required. Max Trillich, who's with the 10 Sports team right through the big finals of the Winfield Cup 1983. Robinson, 34 metres out from his line. Tackle number 5. Chris Mortimer. Brian Johnson. Taken by Farah.
Very unlike Brian Johnson to continually look to kick the ball, and as I think Billy Anderson pointed out at the start of the match, the rumour has it that he was carrying injury into the match, and he is really tentative.
Yes, I'm a believer in the team keeping 7 points in front of their opposition if you possibly can. I just think that 6 points isn't enough, and you need 7 for breathing space. And if Canterbury Bankstown can get the ball back, I still think, even though it's very early in this game, wouldn't be anything wrong with kicking a field goal.
So the kick from Brian Johnson finds touch just outside the quarter. I think Chris Mortimer had in his mind, I'll rake this ball back into the field of play, and he probably had memories of an incident that happened at Lang Park this year, and
yes.
a try resulted.
Also, if he'd have touched the ball and then it had gone into touch, it would have given St George the feed and the loose head.
Canterbury getting the scrum penalty against St George for not packing it on the mark. Very close to the half-time break as Farah finds the line about 8 metres into St George's area.
It's unlike Canterbury to try and parcel things up here too. Look for them to try and move the play infield, 1 or 2 rucks, and utilise the blind side.
Well, this is Folks coming out of a very ordinary attempt at tackle, but he's lost it. And St George with Walsh playing it. Now Wynn. Trudgett. Hughes and Pittman holding him back on the St George quarter. There's the siren. Morris gets the kick in, and it'll be fielded by Chris Mortimer. And he comes to Beattie, is tackled. That's the end of the first 40 minutes with 5 tries scored. Canterbury Bankstown leading St George by 18 points to 12.
Great players they are, and they could be just the men to lift St George in this second half.
Here's Pittman.
Yes, I think he might throw somebody into the game, Bill. I think St George are just relying far too much on Graham Wynn.
Chris Mortimer sending it down to Brian Johnson. And we've seen all this before. And Johnson's kick gave Chris a bit of a fright there for just a wee moment.
Yeah, Chris isn't getting enough support from the rest of the Canterbury players, but when the ball is kicked deep to him, they're just standing and watching him return the kick.
Long ball from Brian Johnson out to Steve Morris, who stepped out of one tackle. Peter Mortimer's got him covered with Tony Armstrong.
And showed his strength there, Morris, not to be pushed over the sideline. Very strong little player.
Trudgett, Henjack on the 32 to Beattie, up to the quarter line. Put down by Folks and Coveney. Now it's Walsh, taken by Robinson. Gee, runs strongly, Walsh. Now it's with Stone, taken by Battieri and Hughes. Robinson getting in for his part of the action. The Saints trailing by 6. It's out to Trudgett, a cutout pass to Wynn. Wynn gets a pass. Oh, Fraser! I thought for a moment he was into a gap. The ball lost by Canterbury. Jansen coming up with the ball for the Saints.
And once again, Canterbury put themselves under pressure with a handling error. They had the ball in their own quarter, only had to ruck it out under no pressure whatsoever, and now they've made a mistake, and St George are getting a run on.
Stone, about 7 metres out from the Canterbury line. Dowling passes to Henjack, who gives it to Trudgett. Now to Wynn. He's beaten Gary Hughes. It's been put down by Michael Beattie. And it's Canterbury Bankstown's ball.
And this is where Canterbury Bankstown need to play intelligent, sensible, tactical football. And this isn't the sort of football they need, where they're moving the ball, first tackle on their own line.
Armstrong.
They've just got to work the ball out of here.
Battieri.
That's far better stuff. See, Taz Battieri isn't the sort of player that you'd call a match winner, but he's what I'd call a match saver. He's one of those players that doesn't make many mistakes, always does his job in the middle of the rucks.
Yes, I'd like to see the forwards get themselves involved a lot more in the in their own 22, especially Jeff Robinson, who had a relatively quiet first half.
Gary Hughes delivers a pass that has gone to ground. Steve Morris, like lightning, has swooped upon it.
Well, you'd think that first-grade footballers would learn by their mistakes, and obviously they haven't, and there's nothing that coach Ted Glossop can do about it. He would have said all he can say at half-time. I know the sort of instructions he would have issued, and Canterbury are just completely denying those instructions.
Walsh within about 7 metres. The Saints piling the pressure onto the Canterbury line. Wynn turns his back on the defence, looks for a runner, but Henjack arrived too late. The line... There's Wynn, he'll score! Graham Wynn has picked up his second try. Oh, Canterbury has fallen apart. At the play, the ball. Now, see this one on the replay. Canterbury, so fragile at the play, the ball.
Well, it's normally a slow start to a first half for Canterbury, but the way they've started the second half, St George, well, their confidence is going to be sky high.
Well, Graham Wynn has picked up his second try for the Saints.
Canterbury have got no one to blame than themselves for the position they've got themselves into there.
There's the wide shot of the simple conversion attempt for Steve Gearon. 2 from 3, one of them from the touchline. Was an absolute ripper. Gearon. gets the further 2 points for the St George side. And it's 18-all, St George and Canterbury.
And with a scoreline of 18 points all, the making of replacements in the second half takes on even greater significance. As we've said before, once again here, an intelligent tactical replacement by either coach can either win or lose them the match.
Tony Trudgeon. Graham Wynn. Chris Mortimer playing it on the 32-metre line. Now to Anderson, Steve Mortimer, Gary Hughes. Gary is not having his usual solid game, Graham. He's missed a couple of tackles and he may not be 100%, eh?
No, well, he has had a couple of bad knocks to the side of his head. He's got a severe deep bruising, and that's why that headgear's there.
You know, if you're going to write a book on what not to do when you've got the ball in your own quarter, that's exactly what you wouldn't do, what Canterbury have been doing for this match.
Well, 6 more tackles, says the referee. Goes right alongside the play. Steve Mortimer with the chip over the top. And Stephen Folkes is tackled from behind by Chris Walsh. Gary Hughes, Anderson, Chris Mortimer, and little Ivan Henjak around the legs. Well, Chris has lost it getting up, so it'll be a scrum. Canterbury making so many simple mistakes, turning the ball over to the Saints. Not quite this time, but they're in a scrum contest now with Saints feeding and the loose head. Henjak cuts out Trudgett, picks up Beattie, but Farah's up very quickly. How are you seeing it now, Max Krilich?
Well, Ray, I'm just listening to you. I think that's exactly right. Canterbury are just giving the ball back and making stupid mistakes. And the longer this game goes on, I think St George might get into this game. They're making too many mistakes, and St George are showing that they can come back in pressure football. And I think they might just do it if Canterbury don't wake up to themselves.
Mortimer feeds, and it's at the same tunnel. And it's a Canterbury scrum win. Now to Gary Hughes, now to Peter Mortimer. He got away from O'Connor, but Fraser cleaning up like a good lock forward. Now Gary Hughes, a shorter ball to Michael Pittman, who's held by Graham Wynn. 10 metres into Saints territory.
Canterbury have to make their main objective here, not to try to score a try, but simply to control the ball. If they can do that, they'll get away with the match.
Canterbury's got the penalty. Canterbury's got the penalty, and John Gosher has penalised Graham Wynn for using his hand to, if you like, massage the face of the player tackled. And it's going to be the shot at goal for Tony Armstrong.
Well, I'm not sure that this is the right decision for Tony Armstrong. He's not a long kicker of the ball, and I doubt that he'll kick the ball dead. I think if I was a coach, I would have preferred him to put the ball out.
Steve Rogers has shed the tracksuit, and limbering up back in the St George dressing room. Man they referred to as the Prince of Centres will be, I believe, into the action very shortly.
Yes, and I think Masters are playing pretty close to the action. I wouldn't be surprised to see him throw him into lock forward.
Tony Armstrong lining it up. 2 from 3. That's the 10-metre line you see that he's on. And he's 34 metres out. kicking to the Randwick end. It hasn't got the length, and Steve Gearon comes away with it to be taken again by Andrew Farrer. I hope you're watching the screen closely in case your name pops up for the 10 Toyota $1,000 cash. Of course, we come on down next weekend to more cash, P&O Cruises and the Toyota Tarago. It's all happening on 10 Sports between now and that full-time siren on grand final day. I hope you're enjoying it. This is Chris Mortimer. So he's running it, taken by O'Connor and Trudgill. Brother Steve. Stretching it to another brother, Peter. Taken on the 22 line. Turned back inside. Now it's with Pittman. $18 points all. Robinson, Anderson, Farrer. Taken by Fraser.
You saw an example there of the sort of things that Jeff Robinson can do with the ball if he's given support. He can offload the ball in tackles.
Kick by Chris Mortimer. Michael Beattie went in for the charge down. Brian Johnson replies.
Canterbury players very slow to get back and support Chris Mortimer, their fullback here.
Graham Wynn. I haven't seen this much kicking in a game of rugby league in goodness knows how long. You'd almost think you're at the MCG. Oh, the mistake made by Canterbury. The scrum will go down just outside the 22. Tasbatiri knocking on. Penalty to Canterbury. He's got Henjack for the feed.
There's a lucky pair of shorts for Steve Mortimer. They're a lot lighter in colour than the normal Canterbury blokes, but for those who can think back to 1980, he's had them since that grand final.
Hey, he's washed him.
So it's out now with Batiri, who would be saying to himself, I almost created huge drama for us. I've got to do something about it, as he took that ball up. And here's Robinson. Colin Fraser there doing a lot of tackling. He doesn't get many reps, Colin, but he does a lot of cleaning up work. Gary Hughes showing it, then trying to split the defence, but Walsh has got him.
I'd still be thinking about picking a field goal. There's going to be nothing in this game when the final hooter wins, and why not get your 1 point advantage and get it now?
Folks. Now Steve Mortimer. Grub kicking for touch, and it's across the touchline, just out from the corner post. So the scrum will go down 5 metres out from the St George line. It has been a feature of this game, the kicking by Steve Mortimer. Vital scrum for the Saints. 7-4, they read out to the Saints. Henjack to Trudgill. Would you be thinking of a drop goal this far from the full-time siren, Max?
I certainly would, Ray. You've got to get in there and put the opposition under pressure. And the other thing is that when they're having these kicking drills, they must follow the kicker down, like follow the ball down, put a bit of pressure on the defence all the time. They're not doing that. They're having these long kicking drills, but no one's getting behind the fullback and following the ball.
Canterbury attacking Robinson, a little juggle before getting it off to Johnston. Now to captain Chris Anderson, back to Steve Mortimer, on to John Coveney. Tony Trudgett's got him and Coveney is put to ground. He's lost it. Wynn gets a pass away. It's with Henjack, and Henjack is met by Pittman and put down.
Not only are they making mistakes in their own quarter, they're making them in the opposition quarter as well, and of course that's just as bad.
Jansen, here's Steve Rogers coming onto the Sydney Cricket Ground. And listen to the fans roar as they realise that Steve is coming out. Dowling spins it back for Brian Johnson. 27 minutes of the match remaining.
As an opposition coach, that's the sort of sight you don't like to see. Steve Rogers coming on as a replacement.
Steve Mortimer making hay while the sun shines. Out now to Chris Mortimer. And he's held by Graham Wynn. Johnston, Steve Mortimer, Gary Hughes. Grub kicks ahead for the men out wide. There's a chance for Farah. Farah inside. Oh, Anderson can't take it. And it's forced in goal by Mike O'Connor. Michael Beattie injured in goal. Gary Hughes, that brilliant little kick of his. Andrew Farah didn't even appear as though he wanted to try and beat Ivan Henjack on his own. It was Michael Beattie who forced it in goal and then apparently got a kick in the face. John Jansen coming from the field, so the prediction of yours, Graham, looks spot on.
Yes. Well, even just having a close look at Steve Rogers, he looks to be well overweight. He's looking a lot bigger than normal.
I take it that he would have taken over the role of captaincy as well. Would that be a reasonable assumption?
Well, he may well have. I can tell you one thing, he's not going to back down in the front row where John Jansen was. They'll put Chris Walsh in the front row, I'd say, and Rogers, I assume, would go to lock.
Yeah, but look for Rogers to try and control play around the rucks, trying to set forwards off himself, especially the likes of Graham Wynn.
Oh, sure, he'll be there to organise play. He'll direct traffic, whether he's captain or not.
This is Folks, hit and hit hard by Graham Wynn. Still 18 points all as Coveney goes ahead. Gary Hughes, taken by Rogers. The crowd roars as Steve makes his first tackle.
Yes, you can see there the Rogers reading of defence. He didn't commit himself to a tackle. He waited to see who the runner was. When there was no runner, he picked Gary Hughes off. He's an excellent reader of both defence and attack, Steve Rogers.
5 tackles gone. Steve Mortimer goes for the drop shot. It's just wide. Just wide. And I think Steve was indicating to the referee that it was touched in flight. Obviously, if it was touched in flight, it wouldn't have brought him the points, but he was more concerned about where this match is going to restart from. And it's coming out to the 22, indicating to the referee. Well, that's a little bit embarrassing for Steve. He was looking for traction, but it wasn't there. A few showers of rain, I guess, has made this top surface just a little slippery. Robert Stone. A lot of these players, I'm sure, will be inspired by the presence of Steve Rogers. Henjack, Beattie, a long ball, beautifully directed. Fraser, here's Rogers. Now it's Walsh.
Yes, we can see there Rogers dropping into that first pass roll off the ruck, organising the play for St George.
Now he spins it back for Brian Johnson. That kick is going down to Chris Mortimer on his own 22. That's a nice take by Johnson, but he's well back inside his quarter line. Steve Mortimer getting under it.
Now they've got a chance to run it here, Canterbury. They've got extras on that side of the field.
Gary Hughes, Peter Mortimer to the halfway, taken by Rogers. Hughes, Steve Mortimer. Pass around the back door, picked up by his brother Chris, and now given to Folks, and Folks is taken by Dowling. Cricket pitch area, 18 points all. Steve Mortimer. It's that kick in, and it's sitting up long enough for Brian Johnson to get back for it. taken by Pitt.
This is where Canterbury got to keep the pressure on now. They've got to keep St George inside their own 22 and hope to either get the ball back at the end of 6 or force St George just to kick it. And if they have to kick from in their 22, Chris Mortimer should be taking it around about halfway and set Canterbury right on the attack again.
Yeah, loose ball for the Saints and cleaned up by Graham Wynn. Nail-biting stuff again. As if last Saturday's match wasn't close enough. This one is getting down to the wire in similar fashion. Certainly not as good a game, but the closeness of these scores in the semi-finals that we've seen so far and again today has certainly kept the fans on their toes as Brian Johnson again sends this kick down. It's a pretty short kick, really. Chris Mortimer's going to run it. Finds Anderson. Now it's with Farah. And Andrew is easy prey for the St George defence.
I just have the feeling that someone on the Canterbury Bankstown team needs to make a decision that they're going to call the ball and simply take it straight up into the St George players and do that as often as they possibly can to get this team going forward, because they're just not doing that.
Robinson getting a good ball down to Steve Mortimer, and then it's out to Taz Batiri getting across the ground and eventually tackled by Mike O'Connor. Peter Mortimer goes blindside, throws the dummy and makes good ground, but Steve Morris has got him, and it'll be a scrum as he goes into touch. Midway 22, halfway the Saints end of the field. Rogers packing into the lock forward position. Henjack 10 metres short of the halfway line. Trudge it to Rogers. Now to O'Connor. And O'Connor almost able to make the break.
Yes, O'Connor's a player that we've seen in the past do a lot when he's got the ball. Haven't seen it today, and maybe he's just about to explode. Well, there's another mistake, and neither of these sides have produced the sort of football today we know they're capable of. They're both well below their best, and they're just uncharacteristic mistakes from two top sides.
Yes, I think you might just like to call it nervous football. I think neither side has settled into their proper pattern, and I just got the feeling the game's poised now that the next scorer will probably go on to win the game.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind what I'd be doing. I'd be putting this ball out, working it for 4 and kicking a field goal.
What would you be telling your troops, Max?
Well, I'd take the leaf out of Bill's hand there. That's exactly what I would be doing. There's some very negative football being played out there at the moment. It's really school kid stuff, some of it going around.
Max, no one just wants to run forward with the ball.
No, there's no momentum, there's no backing up. It's really quite petty football at the moment. These are two very good sides playing very ordinary football.
Coveney tackled in the centre of the ground on the St George 22. Gary Hughes switching it to Chris Mortimer. Now they're perfectly placed right now. Johnston spins it to Folkes, and Folkes is tackled 12 metres out. Canterbury and St George, 18 points all, and a penalty. St George inside the 5. A penalty to Canterbury Bankstown.
I think St George must have had it in their mind also that Hughes was about to kick a field goal. They stood up very flat inside the 5, and of course they've given away a penalty.
Shades of Balmain and Parramatta.
Yes.
This is not a difficult one for Tony Armstrong, but as...
Well, they're all hard here at the cricket ground in a semi-final atmosphere.
I was going to say, as you pointed that out last week, and you came in on cue. He's only about 6 or 7 metres to the right of the uprights as we look at it. 8-6 the penalties to the Bulldogs. Crowd at the cricket ground today, 27,867. It doesn't look as big as last weekend if you look at the hill area, but because of the uncertainty of the weather, the grandstands have certainly been more heavily populated. Some green spaces there on the Randwick Hill. Tony Armstrong, the chance to take Canterbury to the lead. Takes a pretty big divot, but he's got the 2 points. And Canterbury Bankstown back in the lead, 20 points to 18. I wonder will St George meet with similar good fortune if and when they are on the attack down inside the Canterbury 22.
Well, we'll look with interest and see how Canterbury Bankstown use up this 6 tackles. You know, they've got their nose back in front again. There's no way that they have to score. All they've got to do is play sensible football. They should simply wrap the ball here for 5 tackles the same way, then kick the ball downfield for territorial gain. They just don't have to overplay their game at all.
Robinson. Now Mortimer. Hughes. Chris Mortimer makes the extra man in the back line, but Colin Fraser's across there in defence with Ivan Henjak.
Well, they've moved the ball 8 passes and lost 5 yards now.
Now it's Folks. Front on tackle for Steve Rogers. 5 gone for Canterbury. Chris Mortimer not behind the play. The ball, Andrew Farrer. It was who kicked that. Now Brian Johnson.
Yes, this is better play by Canterbury Bankstown. Andrew Farrer, who's a long kicker of the ball, has gone back to full-back for the kicking duels. We saw that Chris Mortimer was there and he just couldn't match it with Brian Johnson in these kicking duels. Now Farrer's there to do the job.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be kicking from there, but I'd be running it. Yes, I agree with Andrew Farrer running on that occasion. Use up 4 or 5 tackles. Try and get yourself about 30 or 40 metres out from your own line, then kick for touch.
Sun again coming down on the Sydney cricket ground.
This is where your players are very tired, your front rowers, your back row forwards, but they've just got to forget that tiredness and hit the ball up one off the ruck from dummy half and so on to get that necessary yardage.
Steve Mortimer out to Pittman, back to Robinson. Robinson finds a hole. He gallops through it. He's over halfway, inside 45, and then Steve Mortimer backs him up to be tackled.
I thought he didn't support there, and there should have been good support.
Johnston.
Let's
Last
look for a kick
now.
here from Gary Hughes.
Gary's with the ball now. Throws the dummy. Gets inside the 22 line. The ball has been lost. And he'll play the knock-on or play the ball going forward. And a scrum 6 metres inside the St George 22. It's Chris Walsh down injured for the Saints, with Canterbury leading 20 points to 18. Tomorrow night again, we're back at 6 o'clock. The full replay of the clash of Manly and Parramatta.
Well, already Coach Roy Masters has put one of his Trump replacements on in Steve Rogers, but he's also got Graham O'Grady up his sleeve. And with St George now being behind by 2 points, maybe it won't be long before O'Grady takes the field.
Henjak getting a pass around the back to Beattie. Peter Mortimer making the tackle. It's out with Henjak and now O'Connor. O'Connor gets inside Gary Hughes, but Stephen Folks made a good tackle. That could have resulted in anything.
Very good lock forwards tackle there in cover defence.
Graham Wynn. A dual try scorer for the Saints. And there's the penalty again from John Gosher that he gave against Graham Wynn in the opening minutes of the second half. Just a little bit of overindulgence, if you like, from the defence after making the tackle. Mike Beattie taking the touch finder. And the tap to be taken by Dowling, 10 metres on his side of the halfway. The run around and Walsh takes it up the centre. Oh, he throws a pass that came off the boot of John Dowling. It's with Mike O'Connor. Play on and 6 more tackles. O'Connor weaving a passage back up the centre. Never played in a losing side of the Sydney Cricket Ground, Mike O'Connor. Rogers delivering a nice ball there, but Colin Fraser didn't have the speed to get through the opening.
Saw some class there from Rogers, a little bit of a jinky, was able to draw one man in, pull him off pull a defender off an attacking player and create an overlap. It didn't come off, but it nearly could have.
Penalty to the Saints. Same ruling as before. Having made the tackle, not getting off the man in possession. This time Andrew Farrer, the offender. And Steve Gearin is going to attempt a shot at goal. Three metres in from touch. And 30 metres out. Pressure kick for Steve Gearin. He kicked one from the touchline today. He hits this one. It's got the direction, got the length. Oh, can he kick? Can he kick, Steve Gearin? Saints and Canterbury, 20 points all now. Paul Langmack comes down to make a replacement in the Canterbury side.
Well, one Canterbury Bankstown replacement about to be made. Young Paul Langmack down on the sideline, but it wouldn't at all surprise me to see Greg Brentnell and maybe even Jim Lease thrown into this game very, very shortly. Brentnell in particular, he's got a tremendous kicking game. He's a fellow that can save the game for you going up for a bomb or with one of those great cover defending tackles.
Win. Walsh. Armstrong. Whistled to the turf by O'Connor. Gary Hughes.
They're just not setting for anything, Canterbury Bankstown. It appears to me that every play the ball's a new experience. And once again, I've just got to repeat, if they can spear the ball up here for 3 or 4 tackles and then look for a field goal.
Intercept! Morris! Sorry, Bill.
No. It was just, that was exactly an example of what we were saying. They didn't really set for anything. They just took the ball in, threw a pass willy-nilly rather than try and look for that field goal, which could win them this match.
The Dragons on the halfway. Johnson. Beatty! Beatty through a gap to the 32 line.
And Steve Folkes again saved a situation that could have resulted in a try. What a great player he is.
Henjak. Rogers. Drop goal attempt by Rogers. And it's just wide.
Yes, but no one had to tell Steve Rogers to kick a field goal. Rogers only been on the field a few minutes, but he was immediately looking for it. He knows that this game's going to be touch and go, and that one didn't miss by far.
The Rank Arena replay of the attempt from Steve Rogers. John Coveney replaced by Paul Langmack. Robinson. Armstrong. A gain of 15 metres. Gary Hughes. Mortimer. Pittman. Win up the top. Henjak down below. Play near the halfway. Mortimer. Looking for the line. And he's found it again. Scrum to go down. About 12 metres out from the St George line. Well, a very important scrum, this one. There are only 10 minutes to go for full time, and
Billy Johnson's proved himself to be one of the best hookers in Sydney, winning balls against the feed. And there's another one.
Steve Mortimer coming the blind. Langmack, Hughes. 10 metres out from the line. The Bulldogs on the attack. Langmack. 5 metres out. Setting themselves for the drop goal. Johnston.
Setting themselves. I just can't see why they're waiting. They should just pop it over.
Steve Mortimer. Gary Hughes. And here's Chris Mortimer. Swallowed by the defence.
2 rucks too late, that field goal attempt. It'll probably come now.
Gary Hughes gets it back to Jeff Robinson. He puts up the bomb. Paul Langmack, I thought, was in front of him, but he's not involved anyway. And Graham Wynn has lost the ball. Graham Wynn has lost the ball, and a try has been given. Try has been given. I do believe the try has been given to Michael Pittman, but it may have been Paul Langmack. Well, Jeff Robinson, he came up with the ball at, well, precisely the wrong moment, which has turned out to be exactly the right moment. Let's see who does actually get awarded the try. Langmack. It's Paul Langmack who's been given the try. This is the end of.
Well, Jeff Robinson took it upon himself here. Canterbury really playing without any direction. They should have been setting themselves for a field goal. He follows up the kick. And a man who's brought off a couple of great cover defending tackles for Canterbury. A solid hit from Steve Folkes. Paul Langmack comes up with the ball. Not tackled, over for a try.
Well, there it is. What a couple of crazy tries have come for Canterbury.
Well, hardly anything's been worked for, Ray. They've just come out of the opposition's mistakes. You couldn't say that either side's really set themselves or anything. There's been the odd 1 or 2 brilliant tries, but the rest of them have come out of absolutely nothing.
Let's feel for Graham Wynn at this point in time, though. He was the man who was trying so desperately to get back into the field of play to avoid the line dropout.
And isn't football a funny game? Canterbury did everything wrong when they should have been setting for a field goal. Well, they'd come up with a try.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of guys criticise Graham Wynn, but those sort of things just happen. A very, very heavy hit from Steve Folkes.
The kick by Armstrong, right on line. Canterbury Bankstown surged to a 26-20 lead. Burgess has gone on for St George in jumper 21, replacing Brian Johnson. 8 minutes of time remaining. Chris Anderson. Just a little bit more on that misfortune for Graham Wynn. I was going to say he'd scored 2 tries and he was proving a real thorn in the side of Canterbury Bankstown, and it really wasn't something that he deserved to be on the end of, Graham Wynn.
And a couple of good decisions there by Canterbury Bankstown forwards. They had opportunities to pop up passes but decided not to, and they were the right decisions. Canterbury Bankstown have got to do nothing to win this game except defend and hold the ball for their 6 tackles. That's all they need to do.
Steve Gearon tackled just inside the 22.
Canterbury shouldn't be the ones to come up with errors here. They should stay well back out of the 5 metre. Try and keep St George down here and get this ball back off them after 6 tackles. And then the field goal becomes even more important than it was before, because it gives them that 7-point break.
Stone, a short ball down for Trudgett to deliver to Henjack and on to Beattie, and Beattie is tackled 8 metres short of the halfway. Walsh. Impressive second rower is this fellow. Oh, that's a good take by Tony Armstrong. Tremendous take by Armstrong. And Steve Mortimer is down in the back play with Graham Wynn. They're both injured. Well, there's no doubt, Max, on the form displayed by these 2 sides today, they couldn't, playing this brand of football, hope to beat the loser of tomorrow's big clash.
And Peter Mortimer's leading the field.
I would say they'd have to improve about 100% their Gray, they've played pretty ordinary football today. If I were Canterbury now, I would keep on taking it straight up the middle and go for their 7-point lead.
Now, Bill, you were saying Peter Mortimer
Yes,
off.
Peter Mortimer's left the field and he was clutching at a groin injury when he left the field. That could be bad news for Canterbury Bankstown. Neil Baker's gone onto the field.
Jarvis coming out for the Saints, having played in the St George Success in second grade. Graham Wynn replaced by Pat Jarvis. Gary Hughes. Langmack taken by Rogers. Gary Hughes, Steve Mortimer, Jeff Robinson. Got the ball away nicely to Folks. 5 tackles gone now for Canterbury. 26 points to 20. The Bulldogs holding the lead on most occasions through this match. St George, I can't recall them actually leading. They've drawn level on many occasions, but I don't think they've actually had Canterbury chasing them. Jarvis on the quarter. Rogers, Henjak, Guerin. Tidied up by Farah and Langmack. Rogers giving it to Stone, and he's outside the 22. This is going to take a stroke of genius from somebody in that St George side, and looking at the ranks, it would seem that it's firmly on the shoulders of Steve Rogers.
Yes, I'm looking at the Canterbury Bankstown side. Steve Mortimer's limping very badly, and I just think for his good and the sake of the side, he's got to come off the field. One of those players that doesn't like to come off, but he's just going to have to come off. I think it's in the best interest of the side.
Neil Baker almost having a midfield collision with the referee. Now it's Gary Hughes. Chris Mortimer. Gary Hughes. Batiri. It's looking very much like that old theory is going to work again. It's almost an impossibility to win from 4 or 5. Baker. Back with Anderson. Taken by Guerin and Beattie, that's the turnover. Rogers. Tony Davies is coming out for Canterbury. He'll replace Steve Mortimer. Henjak. Fraser. Oh, he had Burgess on his left. He didn't see him. Henjak pumping it up to that blind side for Jarvis. He's held by Farah. Strong in defence today, Farah. Dowling. Henjak. Trudgett. Dummy on the run round. Back to Burgess. Burgess is over the halfway. Burgess. He's inside the 32-metre line. And the defence has got him. Steve Mortimer. The ball lost. Canterbury's got the ball. Steve, we've told you, was limping badly, but he realised how desperate that situation was getting by the second. Well, Fraser appeared to have it, and then it was knocked out of his hands by a Canterbury player. And Steve Mortimer coming up with it. I would have thought the scrum would have been used to restart, looking at that on the slow motion replay. Langmack. Steve Mortimer brought from the field. Gary Hughes. Steve Folks. 26-20, 3 minutes of time remaining. Anderson, Robinson. Johnston. Lost by Davies, picked up by Hughes. Given to Batiri. Armstrong's on his left. Trudgett and Beattie making the tackle. Now it's with Baker. That's not a bad kick from Neil Baker. Oh, well,
Wouldn't believe it, would you?
it was like a 9-iron. It hit and came back. Infield for Guerin to be tackled now. 10 metres out from the Saints line. Burgess. Burgess running to the 22 before he even caught sight of the defence. So tired are they? Jarvis plays it. Walsh. He's played strongly for St George. $26 points to 20, the Bulldogs. The pass has gone over the shoulder, given away by O'Connor to Henjack. He's got support coming. Morris is up there with him. There goes Morris. Morris, he's going to score. Yes, Steve Morris has scored. Steve Morris has scored. But now, brace yourselves for the kick that really is going to mean so much to the St George fans. Henjack's pass went off the shoulder of a colleague. O'Connor picked it up and gave it quickly to Henjack. Henjack went over the halfway. He had support both left and right. Beattie left, Morris right. Morris beat the last line of defence and plunged into the Paddington Hill corner to give Steve Guerin one heck of a kick to come.
Well, he's the one man that should be taken. He's one man in Sydney who really can handle pressure kicks like that. But St George never saying dying over these last few weeks of the premiership. Ivan Henjack picking up that loose pass. He did well here to draw all the Canterbury defence in to give Steve Morris just that slight edge, and with his speed, he's put St George right back in there.
Well, slippery Steve Morris picks up the try, but what a magnificent run by Ivan Henjack. And now, can you imagine the pressure on this man, Steve Guerin? The pressure on this man must be absolutely enormous. He looks as cool as a cucumber. You all know how good he is as a kicker. He's 9 metres in, 22 metres out. He hits it, and it's getting wide. No goal. No goal for Guerin. And that would seem like the end of the Dragons. 26-24 to Canterbury. The tension of the three semi-finals so far in the Winfield Cup has been of enormous proportions, and the promoters certainly couldn't have hoped to come on down towards their final and grand final in better fashion, not forgetting, of course, what's still to come tomorrow.
Well, the game's still not over here yet. A minute showing on the clock. There's plenty of brilliant individuals out there to try and turn a game.
Mike O'Connor is held by Baker and Folks and Batiri. Henjack passes, picked up on the bounce by Rogers, given to Burgess. Burgess taken by Tony Armstrong. Over the top came Langmack. Rogers passes to Steve Morris. He went for the little grub kick ahead.
6 very simple tackles here from the Canterbury forwards, all up from the dummy half. Hang on to that ball, and that should be the end of the section.
Langmack to play it. 15 metres out. Stone lifting the foot prematurely. A penalty to Canterbury Bankstown. And that would put the last nail in the St George coffin for 1983, with Langmack taking the kick for line. The siren must be about to sound. Canterbury will use 6 plays and they will basically shut this down. They'll kill it. They don't have to. It's all over with Canterbury Bankstown defeating St George by 26-24. Tries for the Bulldogs to Farah, Johnston, Steve Mortimer, Paul Langmack, Armstrong 5 goals, and for the Saints, Wynn 2 tries, Trudgett and Morris a try apiece, and Guerin 4 goals.